When you think of Buddhist cosmology, what is the image that actually pops into your head? Because for a lot of you listening, you probably see a serene monk sitting under a Bodhi tree, totally detached from the world. Or maybe just simple mindfulness.
Right. It's usually a very grounded, very peaceful image.
Exactly. But what if I told you to picture a sci-fi level multiverse with billions of solar systems, rubbery green aliens, and civilizations being completely wiped out by cosmic winds that literally dissolve atoms?
It is a massive, jarring contrast. I mean, most of us definitely lean toward that inner peace imagery. But when you actually read the texts, the source material we have today, it is honestly closer to a space opera than a meditation manual.
It really is. And we are looking at a pretty wild stack of sources today for this deep dive, ranging from the ancient Pali canons all the way to some incredibly specific, almost investigative accounts from modern Thai monks.
Yeah, and together they describe a universe, or what they call a world system, that is vast, cyclical, and frankly, kind of terrifying in its scale.
Terrifying, yeah, but also incredibly structured.
Exactly. This isn't just chaos, It's a map.
And that is our mission for today. We're going to unpack this ancient map of the Kakavala. We're going to search for the aliens described in these texts, and we're going to try to answer a pretty heavy question. According to this entire worldview, why is being a struggling, stressed-out human on Earth actually better than living in a literal utopia?
It's a completely counterintuitive idea, but I think once you see the actual mechanics of this universe, it makes perfect sense.
So let's just start with the hardware. The architecture itself, the term is Kakavala. And in a lot of older translations, you'll just see this translated as the world. But looking at the sources, that feels a bit small for what's actually being described.
Yeah, the world is definitely a mistranslation, or at least a massive oversimplification. A Kakavala isn't a planet, it is a solar system.
Okay.
It's the fundamental unit of space in this cosmology. And the texts define it very practically. One Kakavala is essentially the boundary of space illuminated by one sun and one moon.
So one sun, one moon, that's one solar system. But the text doesn't just stop there. It scales up immediately, right?
Oh, it goes huge. The source called the Kalana Sutta gives us these dizzying numbers. It talks about 1,000-fold minor world element, which is a cluster of 1,000 solar systems.
So like a galaxy, or at least a star cluster.
Essentially, yeah. And then it squares that number. So a middling world element is 1,000 of those clusters, and a great world element is 1,000 of those.
So we're talking 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000. That's a billion. Or, wait, a trillion.
It is 10 to the power of 12, a trillion universes. And what I find so fascinating here isn't just the math, but the implication. Because we usually think of ancient cosmologies as very geocentric.
Right, like Earth is the center of everything.
Exactly. Everything revolves around us. But this model explicitly says our sun and moon only light up one tiny, insignificant section.
It's basically the opposite of terrestrial parochialism.
It really is. It's a multiverse theory from 2,500 years ago. We are definitely not the center of attention in this map.
Let's zoom in on our specific Kakavala, though, because the geography is really unique. Right in the center, we have Mount Meru.
Yes, the axis mundi, Mount Sumeru, or Meru.
And the text says it stands 84,000 yojanas high. Now, I see the word yojana in these texts all the time. Do we have any real idea what that actually means in modern measurements? Because 84,000 just sounds like a poetic way to say, well, a lot.
It is a lot, but it's likely not just a metaphor. A yojana was a unit of distance used in ancient India, roughly the distance an ox cart could travel in a single day.
Okay.
Scholars debate the exact conversion, but it's usually placed somewhere between 7 and 9 miles.
Okay, so let's just take the conservative estimate. 7 miles. That makes Mount Meru nearly 600,000 miles high.
Correct. And just for context, the entire diameter of the sun is about 860,000 miles. So this mountain is stellar in scale.
Wow.
It's not a mountain on a planet. It is a cosmic pillar that anchors what they call the desire realm. It physically connects the terrestrial plane to the lower heavens.
And it's surrounded by oceans.
7 concentric mountain ranges, actually, and vast oceans with very specific colors. Yellow, crystal, white like milk, and blue-violet.
It's very visual. But I really want to get to the inhabitants. Because floating in this ocean, surrounding Mount Meru, are 4 great continents.
Yes, and in every single Kakavala, and remember there are trillions of them, this exact structure repeats, 4 continents around the central mountain.
And we are on the southern one.
We are on Jambudvīpa, the continent of the rose apple tree.
Which sounds lovely, But the description of life here is, well, it's basically the nightly news.
Pretty much. The defining characteristic of Jambudvipa is instability. Life here is uncertain. We suffer. We get sick. Sometimes humans live to be 100. Sometimes we die at 5. Our morality completely fluctuates, and our environment directly reflects that instability.
Basically the hard mode of the universe.
Yeah. In a way, yeah. But then you have the other 3 continents. And specifically, I want to look at Uttarakuru, which is the northern continent. Because if we are playing on hard mode, they are basically playing with cheat codes.
Uttarakuru, the Utopia.
It is the absolute definition of a paradise. The inhabitants are described as physically distinct from us. They have square faces, and they are 13 cubits tall.
13 cubits is about 20 feet tall, right?
Roughly, yes. So you have
Yeah.
20-foot-tall, square-faced humans.
And their lifestyle.
They don't farm. They don't work at all. The text says the rice grows without husks. It's already sweet and completely ready to eat.
Right.
And they have the kalpa, the wish-fulfilling tree.
The classic magic tree trope.
Exactly. If you
Come on.
need clothes or ornaments or tools, you don't make them. You just go to the tree and pluck them right off the branches.
So absolutely no supply chain issues.
None. And because there is zero scarcity, there is absolutely no private ownership, no concept of this is mine and that is yours.
Which implies no theft, no crime.
Exactly. And interestingly, no families in the traditional sense either. Children are born and then raised communally. There's no possessiveness over partners or children, no jealousy whatsoever.
And the kicker.
The lifespan. They live for exactly 1,000 years. They never die young. They never get sick.
Okay, so here's where I always get stuck with this text. You have a world with no sickness, no work, free food, perfect equality, and you live for a millennium. Why, in this specific cosmology, is Jambudvipa, our messy, painful, unpredictable world, considered superior? Because usually religions try to sell you on the paradise, not the place where you get the flu and have to pay taxes.
This is the moral paradox at the heart of the entire system, and I think
Right.
it's brilliant. The argument is that Uttarakuru is actually a spiritual dead end.
Because it's too good.
Because there is zero friction. The inhabitants of Uttarakuru cannot understand dukkha, which is suffering or dissatisfaction. Without suffering, there is absolutely no motivation to seek a way out of the cycle of existence. They're essentially comfortable tourists.
So they live there 1,000 years, and then what happens?
They die, and they are usually reborn in a heaven realm because they've lived such a peaceful, non-harming life. But, and this is the vital key, they are still trapped in samsara. They haven't learned anything. They haven't leveled up spiritually.
Whereas we, down here in the mud,
We have existential friction. We lose people we love. We get sick. We face intense ethical dilemmas every day. And that friction forces us to ask deep questions. It is the engine that drives spiritual growth. The texts explicitly state that Buddhas only ever arise in Jambudvipa.
so the suffering isn't a punishment. It's the curriculum.
That is a great way to put it. Uttarakuru is a vacation resort. Jambudvipa is a university. You don't get a degree at the resort.
That actually does make me feel slightly better about the state of the world. Just slightly. Before we move on to the more modern stuff, what about the East and West continents? Just for completionism.
Right. Puba Vidya in the east and Upper Guyana in the west. They are sort of middle grounds. They have fixed lifespans of 700 and 500 years. And they have distinct face shapes, too, like semicircle or moon-shaped faces.
Like a crescent moon.
The texts aren't entirely clear if it's the profile or the bone structure, but yes, distinct geometry. They're much better off than us in terms of societal stability, but like the North, they completely lack that supreme opportunity for enlightenment that defines our world.
So we are the only ones with the potential for the ultimate upgrade, precisely because our hardware is so glitchy.
Exactly.
Now, I want to bridge the gap between these ancient Pali texts and something a bit more modern, because one of the most fascinating sources we have today is from a Thai context, specifically discussing the accounts of Longfor Rusiling Dam.
Yes. This is where the ancient cosmology directly meets the 20th century.
For listeners who don't know, can you give a little context on him? Because this isn't just some random person posting on a message board.
No, not at all. Longfor Rusiling Dam was a highly respected monk and meditation master in Thailand. He was very famous for his abhina, which are psychic powers or deep knowledges derived from extreme levels of concentration. He passed away in the early 90s, but his teachings are still massively influential.
And he claimed to actually visit these other worlds.
He described visiting them via Mano, which translates to mind-made body or astral travel. He essentially verified the ancient map through direct meditation experience, but he added details that sound incredibly modern.
This is where we get the aliens.
Right. He described visiting a star called Jamin, which he located near Venus.
Your Venus in a dimensional sense or physical?
It's ambiguous but likely dimensional. And the beings he met there, well, describe what you saw in the source.
He describes them as humanoid, but completely rubber-like. No visible bones, no knuckles, no ankles. Green skin, green clothes. It feels very Mars Attacks to me.
It does sound like classic sci-fi, but you have to look past the physical description to their behavior. He describes them as profoundly peaceful, holding the moral precepts strictly, and he mentions they communicate entirely through telepathy.
Why telepathy specifically?
He said it's because their minds are quiet. They do not have the mental mess that we do on Earth. They don't need spoken words to hide their intentions or negotiate.
That is such a stinging critique. Basically saying, you humans are way too loud for telepathy.
Pretty much. He also mentioned their technology. He saw what we would call UFOs, flying saucers. He described the Jamin ships as being green.
But there were other ships too.
Yes, he contrasted Jamin with a region called Sutu. The beings there were described as technically advanced but completely ruthless and cruel. Their ships were yellow.
It sounds like the Galactic Neighborhood Watch situation.
Yeah.
Did he explain why they are here? If the green rubbery guys are so peaceful and advanced, why are they buzzing Earth?
Observation. He says they like to watch our satellite launches. They're curious about our technology. But, and this connects right back to the cosmology, they find Earth humans deeply dangerous.
Dangerous. We can barely leave our own orbit. How on earth are we a threat to beings with interstellar telepathy?
We are dangerous because of that exact mental mess. Our greed, our aggression. To a being that communicates telepathically and lives in a highly structured moral environment, our chaotic, unregulated minds are basically radioactive. We are the bad neighbors who are constantly fighting and lighting off fireworks at 3 in the morning.
That makes it sound like the Florida man of the solar system.
I think problematic tenets is a very fair assessment. But notice the incredible synthesis here. The modern Thai interpretation links these extraterrestrial visits directly back to the ancient concept of the other continents, or other Kakavalas. They aren't invaders in the Hollywood sense. They are just our neighbors in the wheel of samsara.
It totally reframes the whole UFO phenomenon.
Hmm.
Instead of asking, are they real, the question becomes, oh, is that just the neighbors from the northern quadrant checking if we've blown ourselves up yet?
Precisely. It integrates the unknown modern phenomenon into a deeply known spiritual framework.
Okay, so we have established the space. The trillions of worlds, the rubbery telepaths, the utopias. Now we really need to talk about time. Because this universe isn't static. It has a definite beginning and an end.
And the end is not gentle.
Let's start with the Genesis story. Because it's not a God snapping his fingers and saying, let there be light.
No, it is a bottom-up process, or rather, a top-down fall. It starts with the universe as just a void. Only water and complete darkness. No sun, no moon, no stars.
And the very first inhabitants.
The Abhasira Brahmas. These are beings from a very high heavenly realm that actually survived the previous destruction of the universe. They are described as mind-made, feeding entirely on joy, self-luminous, and they just move freely through the air.
So they're basically beings of pure light. No gender, no physical bodies as we know them.
Correct, but then something happens. The savory earth appears on the surface of the water. The text describes it as having the color of fine ghee or butter, and it smells incredibly sweet.
And someone decides to taste it.
One of these light beings gets a little curious. They dip a finger into the savory earth and taste it. And that is the absolute pivotal moment of creation.
The exact moment of craving.
Kanha. Craving arises. They start eating it. And because they are consuming this coarse physical matter, their bodies literally become heavy. They solidify. And their self-luminosity completely disappears.
And because their inner light goes out?
The sun and moon have to appear in the sky to provide external light. And as they eat more and more, physical differences start to emerge. Some become beautiful, some become ugly, which immediately leads to arrogance and vanity. Then sexual characteristics develop. Gender appears, and with gender comes sexual desire.
It is a total cascade.
It really is.
Yeah.
Eventually, the savory earth runs out, and it's replaced by mushrooms, then creepers, and finally rice. And eventually, people start hoarding the rice. They say, I'll store this up for tomorrow. That hoarding leads to scarcity, which leads to theft, which finally leads to the invention of laws and kings to enforce them.
So the entire physical universe, our actual bodies, our economy, our politics, it's all just calcified craving.
Yes, we literally solidified out of desire. It is a very heavy concept when you think about it. It suggests that matter itself is a symptom of a spiritual fall.
That perfectly explains why dissatisfaction is just baked into the system. We are literally made of the problem.
Exactly.
So we build everything up from this original craving. We create these complex societies. We annoy the green aliens with all our psychic noise. But nothing lasts forever. The Kakavala eventually has to collapse.
The apocalypse. And it happens in very specific, relentless cycles. The texts describe 3 specific methods of cosmic destruction: fire, water, and wind.
And this isn't just random asteroids hitting planets, right? There is a moral logic to which element destroys the world.
Yes. The specific method of destruction is directly linked to the dominant vice of the beings living in that world system at the time.
Okay, let's trace this out. If the world ends in fire,
That is caused by dosa, or hatred. When hatred becomes the absolute dominant force in the universe, the temperature literally rises. The texts say that eventually the rain just stops falling completely. Then a second sun appears in the sky, then a third.
7 suns total, right?
Yes, 7 suns eventually appear. They dry up all the rivers, then they evaporate the great oceans, and finally, the earth and Mount Meru itself catch fire. It burns everything all the way up to the lower Brahma realms. It is total incineration.
That is hatred. What about water?
Water destruction is linked to raga, which is greed. It's described as a highly caustic dissolving flood, and it rises even higher than the fire, destroying even higher heavenly realms. It literally washes the greedy universe away.
And then there's wind.
Wind is by far the most destructive, and it is linked to moha, or delusion, and ignorance.
Why is wind considered the worst of the 3?
Because delusion is the hardest root vice to pull out. These cosmic winds are described as shattering the very atomic structure of the universe. They pulverize the mountains and scatter the pieces into the infinite void. It essentially dissolves reality completely back into empty space.
It's terrifying, but also internally consistent. The mental mess we talked about earlier, the hatred, the greed, and the delusion, literally becomes the external physical force that destroys the world.
That is the core message of the texts. The cosmology isn't just a map of rocks and stars, it is a map of the mind. The external physical world is a direct reflection of collective karma.
And the sources mention lesser destructions too, right? Things that happen within human history, not just at the end of a cosmic cycle.
Yes. The texts say that during the slow decline of a world cycle, we see micro-versions of these destructions: epidemics, famines, and wars.
Let me guess the exact correlation here. War is hatred.
You got it. War is the human manifestation of the fire element, hatred. Famine is the manifestation of the water element, which is greed and hoarding. And epidemics. They are linked to the wind element, ignorance, and delusion.
That hits a little too close to home.
Yeah.
It definitely makes you look at the evening news a bit differently.
It suggests that things like societal collapse or environmental disasters aren't just technical or political problems, they are fundamentally moral problems.
So bringing this all together, we have toured a trillion universes. We've met the utopian giants who are basically trapped in a golden cage. We've seen the green telepaths who think we are the noisy neighbors. And we've watched the entire universe dissolve into cosmic wind because of our own ignorance. What is the ultimate takeaway here for the listener?
The takeaway is really about perspective. We spend so much time and energy trying to engineer a perfect, flawless life. We all want to live in Uttarakuru. We want the absolute comfort, the safety, the long life with no work.
We just want the permanent vacation.
But this cosmology powerfully argues that the perfect world is actually a trap. The sheer vastness of the Kakavala shows us that samsara is incredibly huge and very, very hard to escape. You can be a god, you can be an advanced alien, you can be a square-faced giant, but you are still stuck on the exact same wheel.
Until you use the friction of Jambudvipa to finally wake up.
Exactly. The aliens and the gods are just other possibilities of existence, but none of them actually solve the core problem. Only here, in this messy, unpredictable, painful human life, do we have the exact right mix of pleasure and pain to actually spark wisdom.
It's basically the Goldilocks zone of suffering. Not too much that you're totally crushed, but not too little that you just fall asleep at the wheel.
Precisely. We should actually feel sorry for the beings with the wish-fulfilling trees. They're just burning through their stored good karma without generating anything new. We are in the only place where the real work can actually be done.
So here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. If the hell of Earth, with all its bills and sickness and uncertainty, is actually the only place in a trillion universes where you can get the ultimate degree in wisdom, does that change how you feel about your bad days?
It certainly changes how you look at a traffic jam.
Maybe the traffic jam isn't an obstacle at all. Maybe the traffic jam is the guru.
And the guy cutting you off is just a teacher giving you a pop quiz.
Next time you look up at the night sky, just remember, there might be a trillion other worlds up there full of beings living much better, easier lives than you. But you are the only one that really counts. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Keep looking up.